All right, can everybody see my screen that says careers in economic consulting?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so I'm just going to jump right in and say welcome. We are so excited to have everybody here and talk about our experiences at ECONorthwest. And I want to first say what this is and why we're doing it, and then who ECONorthwest is. So what we want this to be is a discussion between the audience and the panelists about our experiences at ECONorthwest as analysts and associates. And hopefully we can provide you all concrete examples of projects, tasks we work on, and helpful classes to take, as well as just our unique experiences in relationship to, related to our careers. And then our why is we want to share the info that we've learned with students, undergrad, grad, or recent students that are hoping to go into a career similar to ours. Additionally, we have current positions open at ECONorthwest that we would love to highlight, and feel free to go to our website, econorthwest.com/careers. So the marketing internship, natural resource associate, and financial analyst project manager. I believe in the near future, there will be other positions posted up there. So feel free to go and look at those descriptions if those sound interesting, or keep an eye out on the website. Additionally, if you're interested in internship, we do have a notification you can sign up for on the website to get notified when there's an internship. And then who we are. Well, I'm Melissa Carson. I'm a research analyst at ECONorthwest. I've been here for about 3 years, but ECONorthwest was founded by University of Oregon professors in 1970s. There's about 60 to 70 people that work here. We have multiple locations in the Pacific Northwest and one location in Los Angeles. We have 5 departments pretty much. We have a natural resource practice area, a business analytics practice area, an education and social policy practice area, and an urban systems practice area, which is pretty much transportation, economic development, and housing. And then finally, we have a litigation practice area. And what's unique about ECO is it's rather interdisciplinary. You can be in the natural resource department, but work on urban systems projects, or for an urban systems supervisor. So you get to work with coworkers and supervisors that are outside of your practice area if you would like. And lastly, what does ECONorthwest do? Essentially, we work to answer questions that our clients have, which are usually questions about the community that we live in and how to better it. So that's kind of a super summary of ECONorthwest, and there's more information on the website if any of y'all are interested. Okay, I will go over agenda super fast, and then we will jump into substance and really get it kicked off. First will be staff introductions of the panelists. Then it will be 2 project presentations, one about the litigation practice area and a second about a natural resource specific project. The third will be about 15 minutes of structured and facilitated questions asked by me to the other panelists. And then the fourth will be about 25 to 30 minutes. So really the majority of this, questions from the audience to us as panelists. So what that means is please throw anything you're thinking in the chat, that either closed-ended, open-ended questions, please throw it in the chat. And you can send that in the chat to everyone, or you can send it to Sophie Kroom. She's a panelist. The last name is Croome. She'll be fielding questions and kind of grouping it and helping us respond more directly. So any questions you have at any time during the presentation, throw it in the chat or try and raise your hand and we'll get to that. So I'm going to pause here and let the panelists jump in with anything they want to add before we get started. Okay.
We should also let you know that if you raise your virtual hand, Natasha or Sophie will allow you to unmute so you can ask a question out loud if that's what your preference is.
Thanks, Emmanuel. I will kick it off to Keenan.
Okay, thanks, Melissa, for that introduction, and thanks everybody for coming today. So my name is Keenan Gleason. I am by far the newest here at ECONorthwest. I joined about 2 months ago now. I'm a research analyst, and I'm actually based in Denver, Colorado, and I'm working remotely while I am doing my master's in economics at the University of Colorado, Denver. Previously, I worked in academia. I was a research assistant for a few economics professors, and I got my undergrad from Grinnell College, where I studied economics and French. So here at ECHO, I primarily work in the education and social policy focus area. But kind of one of the nice things about ECHO is you can kind of get your hands dirty on like all different kinds of focus areas. So I've been able to, even just in my brief time, kind of hop on and assist with projects in a few different focus areas, which is really great. I mean, having a liberal arts background, I'm definitely biased toward a interdisciplinary kind of environment. So I'm really glad I get that here. And then my fun fact, during undergrad, my friend and I, we for a semester had this like late night breakfast food business. We would like make omelets and deliver them to students around campus. And it was really fun. We enjoyed it. And a lot of the students seemed to enjoy it. You know, just a good, like a little study break during the night. So yeah, I think that's about all I got. Is there anything I missed there, Melissa?
Sounds great and sounds yummy. Annalise?
Hi, I'm Annalise Helm. I'm also a research analyst. I work in the litigation practice area as well as the natural resource practice area. And I've been at ECHO for about 2.5 years. I started after I graduated from the University of Oregon with a degree in economics. Some of my favorite projects in the litigation practice area involve natural resource damage assessment, which covers a lot of different things. But if there's been some contamination or harm to an environment, that needs to be quantified in a litigation situation. And so that's what that kind of project would be like. I have to speak sort of generally about it, but those can be really fun. And on the natural resource practice area side of things, some of my favorite work has been related to climate change. I've worked on a couple of projects that help local communities incorporate climate change related planning policies into their planning documents, and that's been really fun. And my fun fact is that I knit the hat and mittens that I'm wearing in the photo.
Awesome.
All right. Hi, my name is Salma. I am an RA at ECONorthwest. I've been here almost 2 years now. I got a BA in economics from Reed here in Portland, and I work primarily in the natural resources practice area. So a pretty representative project is this Thurston County Habitat Conservation Plan that I worked on, where basically an endangered species, the Mazama pocket gopher, which you can see in the photo in the corner, was basically protecting it, you know, forced people to not be able to build real estate development in certain parts of the county. And so we were doing a real estate analysis for Thurston County, Washington, based on that restriction. And a fun fact is I used to be a competitive cyclist. So there's a photo of me riding my bike. And that is all.
Awesome. This is me. I apologize if I'm cutting out. I'm having internet issues, so let me know. My name is Melissa Carson. As I said, I hold a Bachelor's of Science in Environmental Economics and Policy from OSU. Go Beavs. My fun fact is I was once in a famous country band's music video, and you can see part of my face in it. So that's my claim to fame. My favorite project was looking at loss of tax revenue from companies and individuals that polluted a certain area, and that certain area became a Superfund site. And so based off the loss of tax revenue, we allocated remediation costs to those individuals, and it was conceptual and not put into action as of yet. So I'm excited to see what happens with that. if you didn't pick up on that, I am part of the litigation practice area. So that is where the potentially responsible parties and kind of legality of Superfund sites fit in. And I will pass it on to Shivangi.
Hi, everyone. I am Shivangi Jain. I'm an associate at ECHO, and I work in the natural resource practice area mostly. I studied economics during undergrad, and then I was really interested in environmental policy. So after working for a couple of years, I decided to do a dual degree in public policy and environmental management. I've been working at ECHO for just over a year. I started in November 2020. And my favorite project has been working on an environmental impact statement for a new forest management plan, sort of similar to a habitat conservation plan that Salma was mentioning. That's being proposed under the Endangered Species Act in Oregon. And so we basically have been doing a socioeconomic and environmental justice analysis about how that new forest management plan would impact the communities in Oregon. And my college was very into weird things like scavenger hunts. And there's like an annual one that's held every year. I mean, it's annual. And so in 2011, they tried to beat the Guinness World Record for the world's largest scavenger hunt. And we did that. And so I was a part of that.
Very nice. Emmanuel?
Unmuted. Hi, everybody. My name is Manuel Lopez. I'm a recent graduate of the MCP program at UC Berkeley. Some of my favorite projects have been, well, I mean, I've only been on a few projects, I'm relatively new, but Abundant Housing in Los Angeles, where we performed a housing element analysis. Salma helped me on that one as well as the King County Townhome Displacement Risk Analysis were two pretty fun projects. Fun facts about me, I like rock climbing a lot, and I once broke my arm at someone's head at a hardcore show. So fun for everyone else, but not for me.
Oh, goodness. Okay, I saw there was a question in the chat about what is an RA, what is a senior RA, and what is an associate. And I think we'll get to that just after this section. So we're going to jump to projects, and I believe that's Annalise up talking about the litigation practice area in a general sense.
So I'm a research analyst in litigation, about half of my time. What does that mean? I support a project director who is usually hired by attorneys to act as an expert witness in a case. So in a lot of litigation, it's necessary to calculate damages. And often attorneys will then hire an economist to be the expert to calculate those damages. So attorneys are our direct clients, but those attorneys could represent a whole bunch of different individuals, public entities, private firms. We work for both the plaintiff and defendant sides on a wide range of topics. You could have lost business income, you could have natural resource damage assessment, a whole bunch of different potential topics. But what the actual work that I do is supporting that expert to produce either an initial report saying, here are the damages we've calculated, or a rebuttal report, which is a formal criticism to the other side's expert report. So I'm supporting our usually PhD economists in putting together that report. So what are my tasks? I end up doing a lot of literature review, hunting down sources. There's quite a bit of data analysis since there is a lot of estimation and calculation involved. So I work in Stata. A lot of my coworkers work in R, and we do that data analysis type work. Something unique about the litigation work that I do as an RA is that because we know that the other side is going to spend money criticizing our report, there's a whole additional step at the end That's a really thorough audit of our work and preparing for potential deposition or testimony. So basically there's this whole step involved, and once you've written the report, you have to be prepared for someone to criticize every little piece of it, which is really, it's kind of fun. It's a little bit of a mental game of where do we think we're vulnerable? How do we, make sure we have the right backup and the right evidence? It can be high pressure, and a lot of it is quick turnaround because you're working with attorneys, but you have a really direct impact on the outcome of cases. And, a lot of the stuff we work on has a real impact on people's lives. If damages are awarded to someone who's been harmed, that feels really good. So I really enjoy being a research analyst on those types of projects.
Can I ask a quick follow-up, Annalise?
Yeah.
I am curious if you could give us a kind of concrete example of a project in litigation. And I know you're general because it's proprietary, but could you give us a general description of one of the cases?
Yeah. So, for example, we might have a case where a business was closed due to the COVID lockdown, and they lost revenue because they were closed. And they felt that they were entitled to lost business income insurance payments for that. And now there's a lawsuit about, are they owed, lost business income because of that closure or not? To relate it to this graph you have on your screen, you have the before revenue line up top. T would denote the closure due to COVID. And then we would be responsible for calculating that damages box. What's the difference between predicted revenue and what they actually made due to the closure? And we're not really concerned at all with, does the insurance company actually owe money? That's not our area at all. But we do get to do all of the research on, well, how much money did they think they were going to make? What's a reasonable assumption about that? And how do you quantify those potential damages?
Okay, that's really helpful. Thank you. If anybody has questions about litigation or all the different topics it covers, because Annalise talked about environmental and business and social policy types of litigation, feel free to put that in the chat and we will jump to that in a bit. But for now, I'm going to pass it on to Salma, who's going to talk about some natural resource work.
Great. Yeah, so litigation is kind of one side of what ECHO does, and then like everything else is on the other side. And so the work I'm talking about here is like a small subsection of that other side. And also it's kind of more unique to what I do as a research analyst. So with all those caveats, work in natural resources, often our clients are state and local governments or special districts, for example, water districts or flood districts. And as an RA, the goal for me for a project is usually to create charts and graphs and summarize findings to write up in the final report. So I actually do get to work on things that go into that final report, which is really exciting. And some day-to-day tasks that lead up to that is we do a lot of literature review, we review some financial reports for organizations sometimes. I get to actually do a lot of stakeholder outreach, so finding people who might have a specific interest in this project and interview them and get some data based on qualitative stuff. And then lots of data cleaning and gathering, which is like a big chunk of work sometimes if we have good data. And then occasionally I actually get to interact with our final clients, so those state and local governments or special districts, which is really cool as an RA. So an example of kind of all those things in action is this one project that is ongoing for me. It is this project where we're working with the US Forest Service and the Deschutes Trails Coalition, in Deschutes National Forest in Central Oregon. And basically there are a whole bunch of trails in that area and people are using them a lot, but it is, they're not getting maintained and there isn't a lot of funding to actually maintain those trails to the standard that they need to be. And so we're working on, matching the supply and demand of those two things and coming up with mechanisms for those trails to get better funding and figuring out how to do that equitably. So for example, this is a map that went into our final report. I didn't actually make this, one of my coworkers did, but it's a pretty good example of how we aggregated data and then are displaying it to try to show, where is the density of trails and maybe where should that funding be focused. And I think looking back out at the broader view of my role, I do all of my work very closely with the project manager. So this is getting into the role of a research analyst specifically. So basically we go back and forth and my project manager will break off chunks of tasks and be like, hey, can you work on this piece and then get back to me and show me this, which I love doing. And another fun thing about being an RA is you get to kind of go down those rabbit holes and your project manager may be like, hey, like, I want this as like kind of what the final result should be like. Like, can you look at the data and like collect some information and give me a proposal almost for like, how would you solve this? Or how would you like give me this information? So that's one of the things I enjoy a lot about being an RA.
Awesome, Salma. That was so helpful. Could I also ask you a follow-up?
Yeah, totally.
I'm curious if you could give us an example of a specific task that was asked of you, maybe for this project. Could be a map, could be qualitative, anything along those lines of a concrete question.
Yeah, totally. So a big thing that I spent a whole lot of time doing was doing that creative problem solving thing for basically, we wanted to get a look at what are the benefits of trails in Central Oregon. So we did that by kind of looking at, consumer surplus and also how that spending rippled throughout the economy. And so one of my tasks was we had kind of these base numbers from the Forest Service that were kind of generic. And I needed to scale those up, to this specific forest and also like timeline wise. So what is the consumer surplus for this geography for the next 20 years and kind of year by year add that up for a bunch of different activity types. So there was a bunch of different pieces, but basically figuring out a way to scale that data up based on certain assumptions that I was making was a big part of this.
Awesome. And just to clarify, that scale and that creative thought process you had like directly went into the outcome, which was in the report, right? Like that was clear. Salma's work is in this report as a part of
exactly. Like the exact parts that I made are in there.
Awesome. Okay. Well, if Annalise or Salma, do you have anything last you want to say about those projects? Otherwise, I think we'll go on to structured questions. Okay. Great. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so this can be more of a conversation. So just give me 1 second. Okay, it looks like we can all see each other again. Is that right? Okay, so my panelists, I would love to ask you what unique skill or unique experience that's unique to you did you have that has helped you in consulting? And I think I'm going to pick on Salma first.
I just talked. Unique skill that helped me. I think the first thing that comes to mind is communication. So I was talking when I was talking about the project a lot about how I go back and forth with my project manager a lot. And I think that something that helped me a lot was in college, I had to do a senior thesis like a lot of students do. And I got to work one-on-one with one of my professors who was my thesis advisor, and we would have weekly meetings. And so I think something that helped me a lot going into this job was having that prior experience working one-on-one with someone who you are like reporting to, but also working with to create a final product. Because that's pretty much like day to day what you're doing is having that really close communication and learning how to like own up to mistakes maybe, or going to them when you have problems, or like making suggestions and, taking their advice, but also being able to kind of push back if you think that what you're saying is correct. So I would say having that one-on-one like experience with a professor about something that was my research was something that was really cool and helpful.
Awesome. Anybody else feel like they had a unique experience that directly helped them in consulting? I will go and say that I was a gymnastics coach to little kids in college, and completely unrelated. So that really did help me with communication, because I learned there are so many different types of people with so many different levels of learning completed. And depending on who you're talking to, you are going to have to do different word choices. And you are going to have to use different phrases and over communicate with some people and communicate less with other people. And it just gave me such a great understanding of like the breadth of all the different types of people I'm going to have to communicate with, and I'm going to have to communicate effectively and efficiently with all of them. And I'll also say something not communication related is I took some accounting courses, and it really helped me with being able to dig into financials. I know we are not financial consultants, but economics does involve money, as I'm sure all of you know. And so looking through a publicly available financial spreadsheet or a company's financials on SEC or a like state of Oregon, state of Washington financial report was a skill that I learned through those accounting courses, and it made just such a lower learning curve for those tasks. And I was really grateful to feel confident to like jump into those financial oriented tasks and feel like, okay, I know how to do this. So I'll switch to another question, but if anybody else has thoughts, I'll leave it open. Okay. I would like what is a day in the life of an RA associate? So maybe 3 most common tasks you do. And I would love to hear from Shivangi and Emmanuel at the associate level, and then Keenan and Annalise at the analyst level. So what is a day in the life of your job?
Go ahead, Shivangi.
Okay. So I guess, 3 most common tasks. Number 1 is planning. I feel like I spend a lot of time just planning my projects out. As an associate, you are handling a little bit of larger work streams than analysts do. And so they often have a lot of moving parts, and you're often coordinating with multiple analysts and project managers to stay on task. And so with all of those juggling deadlines and tasks, I spend a lot of time just like managing my schedule and time, and communicating with people about when they're going to get me the things that I've asked for, and communicating with my project manager about when I'm going to be able to give them what they ask me for. I think the second task that I do end up doing the most is writing and summarizing research findings. So that could be something that either like I read a bunch of reports and now I need to synthesize them to be able to quickly tell my project manager or project director that this is what like this flood district does these kind of activities and this is how they fund themselves. Or if I'm doing data analysis myself, it would be looking at the data, analyzing it through like whatever coding language I'm using, and then giving a short summary to the project manager, because they usually don't have a lot of time to like sit with you and go through your data sets. And yeah, I think all of that combined. And then the third is obviously actually doing the data analysis and like working in whatever program you're working in. But yeah, that is my 3 most common tasks as an associate.
Yeah, to kind of echo off of what Shivangi said, there is a lot of expectation management with clients and even the people who work with you, whether they be project directors or project managers. I'm not really involved with too much project management just yet, because again, I've only been with the company for about 6 or 7 months. So we'll be getting there soon. However, my regular day-to-day time is primarily research, and that could be looking into legislation, different policies, maybe helping out with a literature review or figuring out like what literature we need to review in the first place, funding mechanisms, etc. The next most common thing that I would do would be maybe some type of analysis, whether that be quantitative or qualitative. If it's qualitative, that's like performing an interview and like asking questions that like are related to the project and figuring out how they fit into the larger narrative that we're trying to build up. And lastly, I think conceptualizing the work product. Most times when scopes are written, it isn't like super specific into how it will be formatted. And so the entire journey of figuring out what data fits into your product and then how you will actually end up building it towards the end, whether that be in a report or an interactive tool or what have you, is typically what I spend a lot of my time doing. That's about all I have. So whoever's up next for the RAs, please go right ahead.
I'm actually going to cut in real quick. Sorry, Keenan. And I'm just going to ask us to, each of us to raise our hands if we use R or Stata on a weekly basis. Okay, and raise your hand if you use ArcGIS on a weekly basis or QGIS. And raise your hand if your team or your project manager cares what software you use. Okay, yeah, so I think I hope everybody saw our hands well, but we are, as Emmanuel said, a bit tools agnostic here at ECONorthwest. And another thing to keep in mind is that this does not mean we came in as experts in everything. I know I came in mostly with Excel and a little bit of Stata, and I learned QGIS, but this just means we have some skills to work in it. And I think that's something important to highlight. It doesn't mean that 100% of our work is coding. It is a mixture of different types of work. So I'm going to actually pass it back to Keenan so he can say his day-to-day on as a research analyst.
Thanks. Yeah, so my background is in doing a lot of like quantitative analyses. So my day-to-day looks like mostly working with data, whether it's like downloading it, cleaning it, analyzing it, making graphs and tables, making summary statistics, and then like different types of analyses. I would say that takes up the majority of my time. And then, you know, besides that, like Salma mentioned, like, you know, a lot of times you go down these rabbit holes and then you kind of have to like bring yourself back up and figure out how to like summarize all this work you did in like a couple sentences to your project manager or project director. So like, yeah, just communicating all the different rabbit holes that I go down. And then I would say like the third component is like taking results from all that data work and actually putting it into like reports or whatever deliverable you're making.
Great, thank you, Keenan. I would love to now transition into the last 30-ish minutes where we can actually answer the questions from the audience. So I hope we've set up our jobs well enough for you to understand what kind of questions are we can address. So I'm going to jump into one that's, sorry, I thought, one that asks where we can see this recording later. I don't know if Natasha is still on. She's in our marketing. I'm sure we will post this, but I am not familiar with where we post it. Natasha, are you still?
Yep, I'm here. We are definitely recording it, and we haven't discussed where we're going to post it yet, but we have all of your emails if you're attending, so we will send out a little blast and probably put it on LinkedIn as well. Awesome, thanks.
I saw another question that asks if we write reports for policy reform, specifically wetlands. I know natural resource can answer this better. I'm not sure if we've done wetland policy reform, but I know we have done policy reform reports to the legislature. Natural resource, do you know if we've done anything about wetlands?
I haven't worked on like legislative reform projects. Again, I have only been working at ECHO for like the past year or so. So I'm not completely sure though, if we've done something like that in the past. A lot of the times the natural resource projects, we're working with agencies within sort of providing evidence to the agency for any analysis that they need get done. So in terms of wetlands, we could provide research support on like a cost benefit analysis of implementing a policy, but the task of taking that to the legislation and like working on like the politics side of it, that's not something that ECHO is very involved in, I don't think.
Thanks. And just to clarify, we do wetlands, I believe, in the past, but not necessarily wetlands for legislative reform. I'm not sure about that crux, but feel free to go on our website and look through projects on there. It could be posted. Another question that was asked is what skills are needed for what an analyst or an associate role, and such as majors or classes or soft or hard skills. So I will pass that off to Sophie, actually, because she is an intern and she's getting her master's. She's helping out with tech and admin right now. So Sophie, what skills do you feel are needed and what classes has helped you the most in these past couple of months?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Thanks, Melissa. I would say that one of the skills that I've found to be most useful as an intern, I've been trying to dip my feet into every single pool possible. And one thing that's made me be able to do that successfully is strong communication skills. So Melissa actually helped me with figuring out what are the best questions to ask when given a task, and then also keeping people up to date with how I'm doing with completing that task. Then also strong organization skills. So like several of the panelists mentioned, there's typically more than one project happening at once, and being able to organize your time well, and then also organize your tasks well to where you're able to prioritize what needs to get done now and what can be pushed to get done later. I'd say those are two of the skills that were most useful. I've been given some technical tasks where I've said, no, I actually don't know how to do that. And someone is more than willing to help me out with completing that, or with figuring out that hard task. So if you don't have experience in Stata or R or something like that, that doesn't mean that you wouldn't be able to be successful in a role like this, because you can ask questions. It's really important that you're able to organize yourself and communicate your organization well.
I'm going to follow that up and say we've talked a lot about communication on this call. And I know if I was in school and I heard this, I'd be like, well, you can't put communication on a resume, like give me something else. And although that's true, you can put good communication written in a cover letter, and communication skills certainly come across in interviews. So maybe that's not concrete for specifically the resume or CV, but for cover letter and for interviews, communication is going to separate people for sure. Annalise, what do you think about what skills have helped you the most?
I think what was really helpful for me is not necessarily, well, it depends on what you're interested in. Like if you want to be someone who does a lot of hard data analysis, I think it's really helpful to work on a research project while you're an undergrad and get experience pulling data, cleaning data, processing it. But other than that, I would say what has been most helpful to me is a good background in a lot of different topics. One of the really fun things about consulting is that you work on a whole bunch of different projects, often at once, but it gives you the opportunity to become a mini expert in topics you wouldn't even think that people are interested in learning about. But so it really helps in that situation if you've taken a wide range of classes within econ, even sometimes like just as Melissa was saying, accounting. I can imagine a lot of situations where some strong background in a broad range of topics could be really helpful. And on the technical side, if you've had at least one kind of coding class, if it's like Stata or R, or I know there's a lot of Python, there's a lot of options there. If you have some background in one of those, I think that's really useful. If you have some experience with GIS, that's really useful. None of it is like mandatory, but it helps you be ready to jump into a new topic and feel like I may not know everything about this, but I have at least what I need to get started. And that's really helpful in the consulting situation where you are often thrown into the unknown and you have to make do with your tools and the background you have.
I absolutely second what you just said. I agree strongly with that. What about you, Emmanuel? I know you have a master's in urban planning, I believe, and maybe less of an econ background. What classes, what skills?
It's funny. I don't necessarily like think that there are a set of courses that are going to help you out in consulting all too much. I mean, maybe being a research analyst, that's different because you are primarily like focusing on tasks that help a project move forward. But when it comes to the actual skill set that I use on a regular basis, it is really just like experience with like working on projects that I did in school, being involved in bigger organizations and really seeking to see if there is a problem, how can I work with other people to solve it, right? So while you're in school, if you are in school, I would really try to expand your horizons outside of the classroom and really get involved on campus, get involved with local organizations, and use the skills that you learn in school, whether that be like econometrics or data analysis or what have you, and try to help them solve their problems. I mean, I think one of the most important things that I would want to see in a resume is like, what experience do you have in the real world to help people solve the problems that they have? So I would try aiming for that. If you don't have any of those options, like if you're in the middle of nowhere and there is just nothing around you, maybe take a negotiations class. I hear that one's a lot of fun. I liked it when I was in my master's program. It's a fun one. But yeah, that's what would be my recommendation.
Great, thank you. I would also like to address a question that said, what are the like degrees? And you saw some of us during our profiles, like myself, I don't have a straight econ degree. I have environmental economics and policy. Shivangi, you had a master's in public policy and environmental management, is that correct? I know we have people that had a math major. I know we had people that had a journalism major. So I think it's more about proving on the resume, cover letter, et cetera, that you have the competency, the skills, and the drive. Kind of like Emmanuel was saying, maybe it's not specific to the course, but it's about proving yourself and showing the best of yourself on the resume. I don't know if anybody else has thoughts on that too. Selma?
I would add that you do need economics experience. If you don't have a degree in economics, like you need coursework for sure, because we're an economic consulting firm. You do need that. But other than that, completely agree with what you said, Melissa.
Yeah, you're right. Thank you. Let's see. What about favorite and most challenging part about working at ECHO as an analyst and an associate? Let's go. I don't know. I'll let you all volunteer for this one.
Can I volunteer other people?
Sure.
I'll volunteer myself. I hate cold calling. That's not a very good thing to do to people. This is a least favorite question you said?
Yes, but please tell them what you mean by cold calling.
Cold calling, yeah. So in law school, a professor will cold call people in hopes that they've spent the 80 hours a week that they're obligated to work reading the right dense law material, and subsequently they may get the answer wrong. I feel like that's a super toxic way to learn whether or not a person understands a material, and it's not very nice. That's what cold calling is. No, I don't mean like cold calling like a business, like to learn more about them. That's totally fine and you should do it. But I'll go on to the actual question, which is my most favorite part about consulting. I get bored really quickly, and this work is so fast paced. You get to go from project to project and do different things. When I go to restaurants, I like to eat off the appetizer menu because I like to get little bits of everything. I'm not like a big entree kind of guy. And I think that this personifies career-wise what I really like to do, which is what are the new problems up on the horizon, and how can we figure out a way to solve them using the skills that I learned in my master's degree, or maybe to better communicate and facilitate that growth in a city. My least favorite thing is, because this job is so intellectually rigorous, I find that my brain gets even more tired than when I was in grad school working this job. I work, and I know I calculated I worked 70 hours a week in grad school, but for some reason, I am absolutely exhausted after this 40-hour work week. And if it gets to 50 hours, I am truly like a zombie by the end of the week, and I will just be like cuddled up, like doing nothing but staring into the void. So that is my least favorite part. It is exhausting, but it's how you get your muscles stronger.
I
I
would,
mean,
oh,
sorry.
oh, no. Do you want to go, Annalise?
I mean, that said, like, I think the work-life balance at Echo is actually pretty good, even if it's, yeah. So just want to put that out there.
Yeah, I almost never work more than 40 hours a week. I think there's been twice that I've had to work like into maybe like 9-11 p.m. and it was like an emergency, something that couldn't happen the next day or the next week. But other than that, yeah. I was gonna say, I think this was basically the same thing as Emmanuel's favorite thing about it, but like consulting is super cool because you're not like stuck doing the same thing every day for like 2 years. Like there's such a huge breadth of projects. And I think that if I leave consulting or try something somewhere else, that's something that I will be like sad to miss if it's not there at my new job. I know there was a question about whether we do projects concurrently or not in the Q&A. So we definitely do projects concurrently. No one is working on just one project. And I think right now, like this morning, I touched 4 projects. And I have maybe like 6 to 7 happening like with actual things I have to do every week, with like maybe another 4 or 5 like that maybe work will come my way in the next month. So that gives you like an idea of what my amount of, like not amount of work, because some of those might be like 1 task in the week and some of those might be like 10 hours. So the number of projects you're having isn't necessarily commensurate with the amount of work you're doing. But that's what I like that about the job. Like I like that there's that big differentiation. I think one thing I don't like is that I am not a very internally motivated person. Oh, maybe this is a good thing though, but like I like I don't know, like I like if I don't have someone like expecting something from me, like I'm really bad at getting my work done. And so consulting, I think Annalise and I were talking about this, but like a lot of the time you end up like having to be a little bit more like internally motivated, because it's like there's not someone like waiting, like there's not someone like being like, hey, where is this report? It's like, send me this when you get to it, because we know that you have all these other projects going. So it's kind of up to you to organize your own schedule and stay very on top of things. So like it can be hard sometimes to, you know, be like, oh, I really should get this done, like it can't wait, and like keep that motivation going. But the way that I fix that is by telling my coworkers that they need to give me harsh deadlines on things. Otherwise, I probably won't send it to them. So yeah.
Any other thoughts? Oh, Siobhan.
I can jump in. I would agree with Emmanuel and Salma that my favorite part is the diversity of work. I feel like I'm just more efficient at my work when I have a bunch of different things happening at the same time. So I have to make sure that I'm doing everything efficiently and like spending my time and resources as they need to be spent, instead of like, you know, if you have one task and you have the entire day to do it, I will take the entire day to do that one task. So I really like the diversity of the projects. I think my least favorite part about consulting is that it is very client driven. And so there are times when like the client, like a couple of your projects, the clients are reviewing the report that you've given them, and like that's going to take a couple of weeks. And so there can be lulls in your work. And then suddenly one week, all 4 clients come back to you and are like, we want all of these things from you. And then it's like, an onslaught of work. And so sometimes I wish there was like, I could smooth out those highs and lows a little bit more. But yeah, I think that's something that's maybe a little bit more unique to consulting than other professions.
Great, thanks. I will hop to maybe another question, and this might be directed more towards associates. How much time is dedicated to business development, answering requests for proposals, writing proposals, etc.? I know as an analyst, we don't spend too much time doing it, maybe assisting on a task, but associates, is that part of your job, considering an associate as more of a middle between a project manager and an analyst is more entry level or more tasked based? So associates?
I can go. So yeah, associates are a weird like position because it's kind of almost like your trial period for ramping you up to become a project manager. And so depending on how like much time you've spent being an associate at ECHO, your responsibilities will be a little different. And so when I first started an associate, I was not involved in like proposal development or responding to RFPs at all. But the more time I've spent working here and like have built relationships with project managers who like the way I work, they will like bring me on to their proposal teams to write out sections of the proposal. But it's still not expected to be like a bunch of your time. One thing that I don't think I knew about, and maybe I'm not sure how common it is across consulting, is that you're expected to spend a certain percentage of your time every week billing to projects, and all of the time that's outside of that is considered non-billable. And so including, going after new work. And so that's definitely not emphasized at an associate level. And I think project managers and project directors are definitely take the lead on like bringing in more work.
Got it, thanks. And if it's unclear what a request for a proposal or bringing in work means, that's often how ECONorthwest gets clients, is a public entity or some other group will put out a request for a bunch of different consultants to kind of like bid on and show their expertise, and then they'll pick one. So that's kind of what the non-billable proposal, kind of like an application to get the job, essentially. Let's see, any other questions y'all are seeing come in that you feel would be very beneficial to answer?
I know some students could, or some not students, some of the participants couldn't see us raise our hands when you asked the coding question. So I think it'd be useful to do that again, just so they could get a full idea.
Awesome, yeah, absolutely. Could you raise your hands if you use R, Stata, SQL, Python on a weekly basis? Okay, could you raise your hand if you use QGIS, ArcGIS, or another spatial program on a weekly basis? Could you raise your hand if you use writing on a weekly basis? Could you raise your hand if you use Excel on a weekly basis? I don't know if there's any other ones I asked, but I hope that's helpful, that we're kind of across the board and nobody came in with being an expert in all of those.
I think one thing is I'm seeing a lot of questions about what technical skills or analytical skills or classes, that type of stuff helped, like with college or whatever training. So maybe that is where we could go next.
Okay. I think kind of to echo what Annalise had said before, what worked well for me is knowing a little bit about a lot of different topics. I had a GIS class, I had some coding classes, I had a technical writing class. I of course had some economics classes, but I wasn't an expert in any of it. And so kind of like what Annalise said before, just knowing a little bit of a lot helped me work on projects. I'm not sure if anybody feels like did anybody feel like one specific class or skill really boosted them?
Yeah, I think, I don't know how common this is at undergraduate schools, but in my economics undergraduate program, during my fourth year, I took 2 seminar courses where we just focused on a topic for the entire semester. So for one semester was development economics, and we learned how to read and interpret and discuss papers. And then kind of outside of class, we were either replicating studies or working on like a semester-long research paper. And I found those to be super helpful because it kind of like helps build your analytical mindset, and then practically it like helped my coding skills a lot, and just kind of helped me develop that kind of like analytical mindset, and was kind of my like foray into like using the tools of economics to kind of answer questions that we talk about all the time here at ECONorthwest.
Great, thanks. Something I feel like we haven't talked about much is critical thinking, creative problem solving. We did mention, but I think something I realized was really helpful is to have a little tiny bit of research experience, to learn to be skeptical of data sets, to learn to be skeptical of results, like graphs and charts, kind of just have a skeptical / critical thinking eye on things. I don't know, does anybody else feel like that is part of their work here?
Yeah, I mean, especially when like projects involving doing like policy analysis, I think kind of like, understanding, like very basically, that correlation is not causation, and trying to think about like what other stories might exist for the patterns that you're seeing in the data. I think that's been like super helpful.
Great to know. Okay, it looks like we are at 1, the ending time. So I would like to put out there that if somebody has a follow-up question or wants to connect, feel free to email me. My photo and my email are on the ECONorthwest webpage. ECONorthwest is pretty good at doing informational interviews, although, not every individual, but generally. Feel free to look at that careers page, sign up for the internship notifications. If anybody else is open to receiving emails, put it in the chat. So thank you again. Any last thoughts from anyone? Okay, well, thank you all so much. I hope this was helpful about ECONorthwest and consulting in general. I'll hang around just for a minute, but thank you.
Thanks, everybody.